Patrick J. Buchanan is with us, the original insurgent. And Patrick J., how's this going to work out?
Well, we're going to have to see. I do agree with Kellyanne Conway that the Donald is probably behind. I was watching a number of shows this morning, maybe 5 points or something like that. Now, that's not a huge margin, and I don't know that he has to get up to absolutely even with Hillary, but he's got to start moving. There's only 2 weeks to go, Sean.
How do you do it?
Well, my view would be I think most people have made up their mind about Hillary, even those who say, really, I don't like her and don't want her, I'm going to vote for her. I think you do it with issues. And I think his original agenda of issues on the border security, on the trade deal, on the loss of jobs, on foreign wars, on all of these issues, and select individually the really important things that come out from the WikiLeaks thing and these other revelations.
What about Obamacare? Look at Arizona. Arizona supposedly is a swing state. Okay, Arizona, you're going to see your Obamacare, keep your doctor, keep your plan, and pay less, go up 116% this year. This year alone.
That's clearly not only a good issue, Sean. I think the country's going to see that. That's being spread by television, regular TV as well as cable TV and the newspapers. It's front page everywhere. And I think people who understand it, but all those who detest Obamacare and want it repealed are probably already in camp.
Yeah, well, one of the things that Investors Business Daily in that poll suggested, and I went over these polls. Look, I am being very realistic about the election, about what the results can or cannot be. And the bottom line is when you look at the states that need to be won by Donald Trump, he needs to run the table. And, I understand that everyone wants to look at whatever they're looking at and make up their minds. But Donald Trump needs to win the Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, South Dakota, Tennessee, Alaska, Kansas, Nebraska Congressional District 2. Okay, they're all solid Trump.
Those are locked. I can
locked
name
in
them for you, Sean.
Indiana, Missouri, South Carolina, Utah. I think they're solid Trump. This is where it matters. He's got to win Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Nevada, Minnesota, or I'll get to another option in a second. He's got to win Iowa, Arizona, Georgia, Texas, Maine, 2nd Congressional District. Now, if he doesn't get Minnesota, he's got to get probably a combination of New Hampshire, Colorado, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Which ones is he going to get?
Well, New Mexico has been very weak for us for a long time. It's not getting any better. Colorado is going the other way. There's no question about it, Sean. Demographically, I wrote in The Death of the West 15, 20 years ago that the Hispanization of the American Southwest and the American South and our cities and things.
By the way, he could lose Minnesota, get New Hampshire, and he'd get to 270.
Look, we haven't gotten Minnesota since 1988.
Exactly. But there was a poll yesterday that has it at a 2-point race.
Listen, Reagan, let me tell you a story. Reagan won 49 states and lost Minnesota, and I went to work for him right after that in the White House, and I said, 49 states, not bad, Mr. President. He said, Pat, we didn't lose Minnesota.
All right, but hang on. Can he get? All right, so let's look at leading Clinton. If he can't get New Hampshire, then he's got to get either Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Colorado, New Mexico.
Well, Pennsylvania would not only solve New Hampshire, but
solves everything.
The problem of losing other states.
Yeah. Listen, Pennsylvania would solve every problem, but Pennsylvania.
So would Michigan.
And so would Michigan. You're right.
And so would Wisconsin, which has slipped away, which was at one point he was doing very well in.
What do you think the biggest problem is? And you're saying that if the election's held today, she wins.
I agree with that. If it's held today, I think she wins because I think the 4 or 5%, it might come down to lesser than that because of the enthusiasm for Trump. But the state by state we've been discussing would take it away from. I think the problem has been the tendency of the candidate to be pulled away and the campaign to be pulled away from the winning hand of issues that Trump had that had him, as of about 5 weeks ago, at the point where he was about equal with Hillary, and he had momentum, and he had these swing states falling in his favor, blue states falling in his favor. And since then, the constant distractions and the women thing and the Miss Argentina and the bus ride and all of these things and the tendency to pull the candidate off them so it enables the media to stay on those issues. Well, this is what Hillary wants done, to stay away from all the big issues like her votes for war and her votes on NAFTA and her open borders comment, to stay away from that and focus on Donald.
Do you think Obamacare could push it back in his favor?
I think, look, the news on Obamacare is only good because it's proven that the Republicans are right and what Trump is saying is right, and the thing has probably got to be pulled back and reworked at least and repealed and replaced. I mean, it makes his argument, the argument is now made. I mean, a court would slam down the gavel and say, we rule in favor of what the Republicans said would happen.
Yeah. All right, so let's go from here. Let's go over the states you think you'd play in.
Well, I think you've got to have Arizona. I mean, good heavens, if Texas, you got to have Arizona, you got to have Georgia, but as you mentioned, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio are indispensable. You got to get those. Then you get Nevada, and if you get Iowa, then you've got to get one more. That means, I think, New Hampshire. But New Hampshire's, my old friend Joe McQuaid's been attacking Trump. He doesn't want him. He endorsed a libertarian, I think.
Yeah, that's painful, and I agree.
Yeah,
what do you make?
Newspaper, a great guy.
I've never seen anything like this, though, in all the years I've been doing this, which is 30 years in radio and 21 years, can you believe it, on the Fox News channel. I don't even think you were on CNN 21 years, were you?
Oh, listen, I've probably been thrown off by then.
Am I doing something wrong, Pat? I think you decided to run for president too much.
I was running the second time, Sean, and then heading back to CNN.
Yeah, that's true. You were back and forth like a yo-yo at some points. But I've never seen anything like this. The Republican establishment against him, the globalist establishment against him, the Democratic establishment against him, and WikiLeaks more than anything has proven what I've been saying is journalism is dead. The media establishment, there was a story out today, 91% of media coverage of Trump has been negative.
I saw that. But what does it tell you? It tells you that Donald Trump, on trade and on foreign policy and on immigration and on other issues that go along with the conservative agenda of the party, the populist conservative, nationalist conservative, they are an extraordinary threat. They are the great threat to the establishment of this country, and what you're seeing is the two wings of the same bird of prey coming together. All the forces of the central government and the national establishment are coming together. They might call themselves Republicans or independents or whatever, but they all are one when their vital interests are threatened, and that's what Trump does.
We learned in the latest email WikiLeaks dump of 65 big-name reporters who work for the elite media coordinating their stories with Hillary Clinton's campaign staff. By the way, no Fox News reporters made the list. At least 38 top national reporters attended a dinner with John Podesta at his house in April of 2015. The Clinton campaign sent out the invites to New York reporters in April of 2015, and it goes on and on. Now, the Clinton campaign detailed the guest list as compliant reporters. I mean, and it's everybody you would know and then some.
But look, Sean, if you go, I haven't gone to the White House Correspondents' Dinner for a long time.
I've never been once. Thank you.
Even Obama got up there when he first was elected and said, "Now I'm glad to be speaking to my base," or something like that, and they all laughed. They all know it's true. And not only is overwhelmingly they support the candidate as they did Kennedy and as they did Humphrey, but also the savagery of the media. And frankly, they will admit, many of them, that look, we're not reporting the quote news or what he says. We're telling you when he's lying, and they'll say lying right in the lead and the headlines. I've never seen it this bad, and it's a permanent problem for the conservative movement. The great adversary of conservatism is located in the media.
What happens? Let's take a step back here. What happens on November 9th if Paul Ryan and all of these other so-called conservatives that have been involved in sabotaging and all the never-Trumpers and the Wall Street Journal and NRO guys, and they all get their way, and Hillary gets to pick however many Supreme Court justices. And all of the people that did support Donald Trump, how angry are they going to be, and what does that mean for the Republican Party's future?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. I think this.
Because I'm going to be angry.
Very young in the Goldwater era, and I know that Nixon did the right thing. He went out, though he disagreed with Goldwater, campaigned for him in every state, and went out to 35 states. My wife was with him as a secretary. I wasn't with her then, but she was a secretary. And when it ended, Rockefeller and Romney and Scranton and those guys that had cut Goldwater and ditched him and ruined his convention, they never made it. Nixon and Reagan were two guys that stood by Goldwater in that 44-state defeat, and they were the ones that rose. Now, I read at how moral and great and progressive and these guys did who have dumped on Trump and cut him dead, and how they're going to do really well, and they're the rebuilders of the party. I really don't think so. I don't think, guys, when you're at Gettysburg and you've lost Gettysburg, that the guys that weren't there or that knocked you are the ones that whom you elevate and honor and reward. I think you're going to have. I think all these folks that have abandoned Trump. I don't think any of them will ever be nominated for president of the United States.
And that means John Kasich. That means Jeb Bush. That means Lindsey Graham. That means
I think Bush Republicanism is dead. I really do. I think the ideas, its big ideas, what were they? Quote, immigration reform, which was another word for amnesty. He had his wars in Iraq and all that, we're going to make democracies out of all these countries in the Middle East and send troops to do it. Our great trade deal, they're standing up there with Clinton, signing on to NAFTA, Jim Baker and all the guys, and Mr. Bush Sr. So all these trade deals, they're behind all of them. What are they going to do? Go out and say, we were right about these deals and we're going to work with Hillary and implement them? I don't know if Hillary can even implement TPP now, because she herself realizes what Trump has been saying on these trade deals, the country has been hearing and agreeing with.
Yeah, I agree with you on the trade deals. This has gotten so far out of hand, and what a sad state. I mean, I thought Trump's line about Flint, Michigan, it used to be the cars were made in Flint and dirty water was in Mexico. Now you got the cars made in Mexico and dirty water in Flint. There used to be at one point, Pat, over 85,000 GM workers in Flint, Michigan. There's like 8,000 now.
Yeah,
and Ford
we lost this, I think I've mentioned before, Sean, in the first decade of the 21st century, we lost 55,000 factories and 6 million manufacturing jobs. That's almost 1 in 3 of all the manufacturing jobs we had. You just, bombed. What we've done to our own industrial base is pretty much what the 8th Air Force did to the industrial base of Japan, and what Bomber Harris did to the industrial base of Germany. We blew it all up, only differently. We've dismantled it, sent it all abroad, sent the jobs all abroad, all the energy, all the technology that goes with factories, sent it all to China. China's the greatest manufacturing country in the world. And when I was in China, Sean, they didn't even have street lights in Shanghai. I was there with Nixon. It was a place run by a bunch of mad monks, and there was hardly a car on the streets.
Let me ask you this, because I think this is very important. Do you think this movement of Trump, win, lose, or draw, continues? Because I think it does. I think this is the first shot fired.
Well, it's not only going to. I'll tell you why. It's
because I'm going to tell you right now, I can't support the Republican Party as it's currently configured. Well, I can't support people that are weak and don't fight. I can't support people that.
Not only that, Sean. I mean, it's the problem with the establishment, which I've never been able to understand, is that it's not only unaware of what's going on. When it is given wake-up calls, it goes back to sleep. Look, the immigration issue, we discussed it back in 1991-92 out in the San Diego corridor. We said, gee, you got to build a fence here. They got 5,000 people walking in on the weekends. The manufacturing jobs were starting to go. They knew NAFTA was unpopular. They saw this stuff developing, and they did nothing about it. Do they think they're going to go back and say, we got a new free trade agreement with a massive worldwide free trade agreement, or we need open borders? Hillary's running away from that. And if they continue down that road and they send another army to the Middle East and another army to the Middle East, I mean, this country, the people will react then as they did now, only exponentially.
Unbelievable times. You know what the sad thing is? You know who's getting screwed in all this, Pat? American workers, 95 million Americans out of the labor force.
Shafted as middle America, whom we were supposed to represent.
We don't represent them anymore because we represent open borders. And they represent big companies that want cheap labor. That's what they represent, and it's sad.
Sure, they represent the people that pay their salaries. I mean, look at the guys on the Hill. Once the election's over, they respond to the guys that write the big-ticket checks, the Chamber of Commerce guys, the business roundtables, the big corporate guys, and they love this globalization. I mean, they're headed for Davos and Dubai, and they can move their factories over where they produce cheaply and then bring all the goods back to the USA.
Well, listen, you know what, Pat? I'll be honest. You're not going to suffer. I'm not going to suffer, but our kids will, and our grandkids will.
Well, that's exactly why the millennials are having a real problem.
No, you're right.
Look at how Americans have turned against so-called free trade.
All right, Pat, I got to run. Patrick J. Buchanan, the original insurgent, thank you for being with us.